3 nights before the crucifixion, Jesus took his inner circle to a room in Bethany. Not all 12 disciples, just the ones he knew could handle what he was about to teach them. Mary Magdalene was there, John was there, and according to the Gospel of Philip, one of the texts the church tried to burn, Jesus did something that night that changed everything those chosen ones understood about protection. He lit a single candle, not for light, not for ceremony. And he taught them a ritual so simple, so devastatingly effective at banishing Archon presence, that the church spent the next 300 years trying to erase every written record of it. Because if Christians knew they could banish demonic entities with nothing but a candle and 3 spoken words, the entire industry of exorcism, of priestly spiritual warfare, of institutional control over who gets protection and who doesn't, all of it collapses. The text says Jesus told them, "When the powers of darkness gather, when you feel their presence heavy in your space, light the flame and speak the words I'm giving you. The flame will become a sword, the darkness will flee, not because fire scares them, because this specific flame, prepared this specific way, broadcast at frequency Archons cannot withstand." And it worked. The early Gnostic communities used this ritual constantly. They would gather in secret, light the prepared candles, speak the words Jesus taught, and every Archon in that space would be forcibly expelled. Not temporarily pushed back, banished, unable to return. Tonight you're learning the complete candle ritual Jesus taught to the chosen ones. The type of candle that carries the frequency, the preparation that activates it, the 3 words that turn flame into spiritual weapon. And why Archons fear this more than any prayer, any blessing, any holy water the church could ever offer. If you're doing the candle ritual tonight, comment "banished" right now. Before I give you the exact ritual, you need to understand why a candle works when most other protection methods don't. It's not symbolic. It's not about faith. It's physics operating at a level most people never consider. Light and darkness aren't just metaphors in spiritual warfare, they're actual frequencies. Darkness is the absence of photons. It's a state of low vibration, low information, low consciousness. And Archons exist in that bandwidth. They're entities that operate in frequencies below visible light, in the infrared and sub-infrared ranges where human perception can't normally reach them. They need darkness, not just visual darkness, but energetic darkness. Spaces where fear, confusion, and separation consciousness create the low-frequency environment they can inhabit. But light doesn't just illuminate, light displaces. When you introduce photons into a dark space, darkness doesn't fight back. It can't. Darkness isn't a thing. It's the absence of a thing. And the moment light appears, darkness is gone, not pushed into a corner, erased. This is what Jesus understood at a level that allowed him to teach it as spiritual technology. If you could create a light source that operates not just in the visible spectrum, but in the spiritual frequencies where Archons exist, you could banish them the same way flipping a switch banishes darkness from a room. Instantly, completely, with no resistance possible. And that's exactly what the prepared candle does. But here's the critical part. Not every candle works. The candle Jesus taught chosen ones to use isn't paraffin. It's not soy. It's not even palm wax. It's beeswax, pure beeswax. And the reason is something modern science is only beginning to understand. Beeswax, when burned, emits negative ions. Actual measurable particles that carry a negative electrical charge. And negative ions do something extraordinary to human consciousness and to the energetic environment of a space. They neutralize positive ions, the charged particles that accumulate in spaces where electronics run, where synthetic materials off-gas, where human stress and fear generate energetic density. Positive ions make you feel heavy, tired, anxious. They create the exact frequency Archons thrive in. Negative ions do the opposite. They make you feel clear, alert, energized. and they create an environment archons cannot inhabit. When you burn a beeswax candle, you're not just generating light. You're flooding the space with negative ions, with particles that restructure the energetic frequency of the entire room. And archons, sensing that frequency shift, sensing the environment becoming hostile to their presence, begin to retreat. But that's just the preparation. That's the candle doing the baseline work. The banishment happens when you add the second element, the words. In the Gospel of Philip, there's a teaching about the power of spoken words that the church could never fully suppress. It says the names and the words that the powers gave to humans contain great power, but the names that were given in truth, these the powers cannot even hear. And when they are spoken, the powers flee. Jesus gave his inner circle 3 words to speak over the flame, not long incantations, not complex prayers. 3 words that, when spoken with understanding over a burning beeswax candle, create a frequency the archons recognize as command. And command from a consciousness they cannot challenge. The 3 words are light drives out. That's it. Simple, undeniable, absolute. But the power isn't in the words themselves. It's in what the words do when spoken over flame by someone who understands what they're actually declaring. Light is consciousness, it's awareness, it's the monad expressing itself in material form. Drives is action, force, inevitability. It's not requesting, it's not hoping, it's stating a law of physics. Out is direction, banishment, the declaration that what doesn't belong in this frequency must exit. When you speak these 3 words over a lit beeswax candle, you're not asking anything to leave. You're declaring a law. You're stating the truth that consciousness, awareness, and light are incompatible with unconsciousness, ignorance, and darkness. And the archons, entities that exist by hiding in the absence of awareness, cannot remain in a space where that truth is being actively spoken and broadcast through flame. Here's what happens on an energetic level that most people never perceive, but chosen ones who've done this ritual consistently all report the same experience. The moment you speak the words, the flame responds. It flares, it shifts, sometimes it grows taller, sometimes it starts moving in patterns that don't match any air current in the room. That's not your imagination, that's the flame responding to the frequency you just introduced through your voice. The words carry intention, intention carries frequency. And the flame, already broadcasting negative ions, begins broadcasting that frequency as well. It becomes a transmitter. The candle is the hardware, the words are the signal. And the combination creates something archons cannot tolerate. They don't leave because they're scared. They leave because the environment has become fundamentally incompatible with their ability to maintain coherent form. It's like trying to exist underwater without gills. It doesn't matter how strong you are, you can't stay. The medium won't support you. Let me give you the complete ritual exactly as Jesus taught it. You're going to need 1 beeswax candle, not a candle that contains some beeswax, a candle that is pure beeswax. You can find these online, at spiritual shops, sometimes at farmers markets from beekeepers. The candle doesn't need to be large. Even a small beeswax candle will work because it's the material, not the size, that matters. Once you have your candle, you're going to prepare your space. This doesn't mean you need to cleanse it first, or sage it, or do elaborate setup. You just need a space where you can sit with the candle for 10 minutes without being interrupted. Dim the other lights in the room. You want the candle to be the primary light source because that amplifies its effect. The more the room depends on the flame for illumination, the more the flame's frequency dominates the space. Place the candle in front of you on a stable surface, something that won't catch fire, something that can hold the candle securely, and then you light it. As you light the candle, you're not just starting a chemical reaction, you're activating spiritual technology. Watch the flame establish itself, let it stabilize. This usually takes about 30 seconds. The flame will flicker at first, then settle into a steady burn. Once the flame is steady, you begin. You're going to speak the 3 words. Light drives out. Speak them clearly, not shouted, not whispered. Spoken with the same tone you'd use to state an undeniable fact. The sky is blue, water is wet, light drives out. As you speak, keep your eyes on the flame. You're not meditating. You're not closing your eyes and visualizing. You're watching the flame and speaking the words, and the combination of visual focus and spoken frequency creates the banishment effect. Speak the words 3 times. Once to establish the command, twice to amplify it, 3 times to seal it. Light drives out, light drives out, light drives out, and then you sit in silence with the flame burning for at least 7 minutes. During those 7 minutes, several things are happening simultaneously. The flame is continuing to emit negative ions, restructuring the energetic density of the room. The frequency you introduce through the spoken words is continuing to broadcast from the flame like a radio tower, and any archon presence that was in the space when you started is being systematically expelled. Some chosen ones report feeling a shift in the atmosphere within the first 2 minutes. The air feels lighter. The pressure that was sitting on their chest or their head dissipates. The room that felt watched or heavy suddenly feels neutral, empty in a good way. Others report seeing movement in their peripheral vision during those 7 minutes. Shadows that seem to pull away from the flame, shapes that move toward exits, doorways, windows. That's not imagination. That's you perceiving the archons retreating. Your third eye, activated by the focused attention and the negative ions, is momentarily able to see what's normally invisible. And what you're seeing is entities that cannot remain in the frequency the flame is broadcasting. After 7 minutes, you can either let the candle burn out naturally if it's small, or you can extinguish it if it's larger and you plan to use it again. But here's what's critical. Once you've done this ritual in a space, that space stays clear. Not forever, but for days, sometimes weeks, depending on what you bring back into it through your own emotional states or through other people entering. The ritual doesn't just banish archons temporarily, it resets the frequency of the location, and archons don't return to spaces where they've been forcibly expelled unless something or someone creates an opening for them again. The early Gnostic Christians did this ritual every evening, not because they were constantly under attack, but because they understood prevention. If you banish archons daily, they never get a foothold. They never establish anchor points. They never build the energetic cords they use to attach to chosen ones. The ritual becomes a maintenance practice, a way of keeping your environment spiritually clean, the same way you keep it physically clean. And here's what chosen ones who commit to this practice for 30 days consistently report. First, sleep becomes deeper. If you've been waking up at 3 or 4 in the morning feeling anxious or oppressed, that stops. Archons feed during sleep because your conscious defenses are down. But when your space is clear, when you've banished them before you sleep, they can't access you. Your dreams shift too. Instead of chaotic, disturbing, or draining dreams, you start having clear, coherent, sometimes profoundly meaningful dreams. That's because your consciousness isn't spending the night fighting off entities trying to harvest your energy. It's free to do what sleep is actually for: processing, integrating, and connecting to higher guidance. Second, your mental clarity stabilizes. If you've been experiencing brain fog, confusion, intrusive thoughts, or difficulty making decisions, the ritual cuts through all of it. Most of what people think is their own mental noise is actually archon interference. They generate confusion, they implant doubt. They keep you in perpetual second-guessing, so you never take decisive action. When you banish them from your space consistently, the interference stops. And what you're left with is your own mind, clear, focused, and capable of thinking without constant internal static. Third, other people's energy stops affecting you as much. If you're someone who feels drained after social interactions, who picks up on everyone's mood and carries it home with you, the candle ritual creates a buffer. You're not just clearing your physical space, you're clearing your energetic field. And when your field is clear, other people's chaos doesn't stick to you the way it used to. You can be around difficult people, toxic environments, high-stress situations, and when you come home and do the ritual, you discharge all of it. The flame burns away what you picked up. The words reset your frequency. And you wake up the next day clean. Here's why Archons fear the candle ritual more than any other protection method chosen ones have access to. Most spiritual protection practices are defensive. You're creating shields, calling in guardians, visualizing white light around yourself. All of those methods require constant energy input from you. You have to maintain the visualization. You have to reinforce the shield. And the moment your focus slips, the moment you get distracted or exhausted, the protection weakens and the Archons slip back in. But the candle ritual isn't defensive. It's offensive. You're not trying to keep Archons out. You're forcibly removing them. And once they're removed, they can't just walk back in. The frequency of the space has changed. The environment has become hostile to their presence. And it stays that way without any additional effort from you. That's what makes it unbearable for them. They can't outlast it. They can't wait for you to get tired and lower your guard. The flame keeps broadcasting. The negative ions keep restructuring the space, and they have no counter move. All they can do is leave and hope you stop doing the ritual so they can eventually return. The church understood this. That's why they suppressed it so aggressively. In the 4th century, when the Council of Nicaea was standardizing Christian doctrine, one of the practices they explicitly banned was what they called the heretical use of flame for spiritual warfare. They didn't phrase it that way in the official records. They called it Gnostic fire magic. But what they were actually banning was the candle ritual, because Gnostic communities were using it to banish the very entities the church had made treaties with. The institutional church, from the moment Constantine weaponized Christianity, was operating in partnership with archonic forces. The hierarchy, the control, the fear-based doctrine, the suppression of direct spiritual experience, all of it was Archon design. And the Gnostics, the ones who still remembered what Jesus actually taught, were using the candle ritual to break free from that control. So the church banned it. They confiscated the texts that described it. They burned the Gnostic communities that practiced it, and they replaced it with priest-mediated exorcism, with holy water that only clergy could bless, with rituals that required church approval and church oversight. They took the power out of the hands of individual chosen ones and centralized it under institutional authority, and it worked. For over 1,000 years, most Christians didn't know they could banish Archons themselves. They thought they needed a priest. They thought they needed permission. They thought protection was something the church provided, not something they could generate with a candle and 3 words. Tonight, you're taking that power back. You don't need permission. You don't need a priest to bless your candle. You don't need the church's approval to banish entities from your own space. You need beeswax, flame, and 3 words. That's it. And the moment you light that candle and speak those words, you're doing what Jesus taught the chosen ones to do 2,000 years ago. You're operating as sovereign consciousness. You're declaring your authority over your own environment. And the Archons, recognizing that authority, have no choice but to leave. If you've been feeling oppressed in your space, if you wake up feeling drained, if your home feels heavy or watched, if you tried other protection methods and they only work temporarily, this is what you need. Not another visualization, not another crystal grid, not another cleansing ritual that requires ingredients you don't have and steps you'll forget. A beeswax candle and 3 words. Simple, accessible, undeniable. Get the candle tonight if you don't already have one. If you do have one, don't wait. The longer you wait, the more you give Archons time to reinforce their presence. The more they establish anchor points, the harder they become to remove. Do the ritual tonight. Light the candle, speak the words, sit with the flame, and notice how the atmosphere in your space shifts. You won't have to wonder if it worked. You'll feel it. The heaviness will lift, the pressure will release, and for the first time in possibly years, your space will feel like it's actually yours again. Not shared with entities you can't see. Not occupied by presence that feeds on your energy while you sleep. Yours, clean, clear, and protected by a frequency archons cannot penetrate. Jesus taught the chosen ones the candle ritual that banishes archons. Beeswax flame, 3 words, 7 minutes, not as religious ceremony, as technology, as a method that works whether you believe in it or not, because it's operating on physics, on frequency, on the undeniable truth that light displaces darkness and consciousness expels unconsciousness. The church removed this teaching because they couldn't control what it made possible. If every Christian knew they could banish demons with a candle, the entire system of priestly spiritual authority collapses. You don't need an exorcist. You don't need holy water blessed by bishops. You need a flame and the willingness to speak truth over it. Tonight you have the complete ritual. The candle type, the preparation, the 3 words, the timeline. Everything Jesus gave to the chosen ones is now yours. What you do with it is your choice. But if you're tired of sharing your space with entities that drain you, if you're done being oppressed by presence you can't see but can definitely feel, light the candle tonight. Speak the words, and watch how fast they leave, not because you fought them, because you declared a truth they cannot exist in the presence of. Light drives out. And once light fills your space, there's nowhere for darkness to hide. If you're doing the candle ritual tonight, do 3 things right now. First, comment banish below and commit to the practice. Second, subscribe to Divine Codes because the advanced candle techniques and protection protocols for different archon types are coming. Third, like this video so other chosen ones discover what Jesus taught about banishing archons before the church suppresses this teaching again. Do all 3 now. Then tonight, get your beeswax candle, light it, speak the 3 words. Light drives out, light drives out, light drives out, and sit with the flame for 7 minutes. By the time you extinguish it, your space will be clear, the archons will be gone. And you'll know, not from faith, but from direct experience, that you have the power to banish anything that doesn't belong in your frequency. You're not asking for protection, you're commanding your space. And when a chosen one commands with flame and truth, the archons have no choice but to obey. Your space is yours. Claim it tonight.